counting is something I have always enjoyed doing. And that's my character flaw, I guess. But anyway, I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all today. Okay, so for cycle counting, let me go back up. Okay, here we go. Better start. The thing about cycle counting is you can cover it at several different layers and or levels of granularity. You can go at a very high level and just tell you what it is. You can go at a medium level and talk about the principles and get a little bit into the tools, which is exactly what we're going to be doing today. And then you can go into it at a very granular detail where you really dig in on the tools and take you through that high level of detail. We're not going to go there today because at the end of this, all you have to do is reach out to me with the contact information that is on the screen, and I will provide any tools that we're going to be covering today, and I'll help you through those as we talk about those. But in the interest of everyone's time and sanity, I'm not going to take you through the highest level of detail. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That being said, I love this saying, and I've been using it for like 20 or 30 years within supply chain. But the only thing worse than a bad forecast is bad inventory. And the reason for that is that if you have a bad forecast, you kind of see things coming. You know, you see that you're over or underselling what you thought was going to happen, and you're getting some bad news early. And you're seeing that you need to make an adjustment to your current plan. Having bad or incorrect inventory is a completely different story because you're going to pick a job or pick a material and it is not there. Okay, you've got no options, and you know your victim or you're hostage to the lead time that it's going to take to get that material in, or you're going to have to reschedule. So you just get no bad news early there. And you know what? That's why it matters to me. That's why this has been so important to me. So, you know, on a presentation like this, we always have the slide that says why it's important, why we're talking about this. And this is no different. You know, I've got a lot of reasons why having accurate inventory should be important to you. I'm not going to read through this, but plain and simple, if your inventory is inaccurate, then it's disruptive. And quite honestly, it hurts your credibility, okay, for whoever's managing it. But the disruptive part, that's the main thing. That's why it is so important. So let's have some fun here today. You know, that's why I'm here. Why are you here? Let's play with the chat feature a little bit. And just share with me, why is it that you're going to give me a little bit of your time today to talk about inventory? Why is it important to you? Let's play with the chat. Don't be shy.
That sounds great. Thanks, Kevin. Were you able to get that to pop out for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. But nobody's talking. Oh, there we go.
Here they come. You just got to give it a minute.
Thank you. Okay. So Jared, that's good. Talking about inventory management process. I'll share with you the inventory management webinar that we had that really got into the way to manage it in general. So it's not just inventory accuracy, but the whole management process. In fact, send me a reminder because I'm old and I tend to forget things. Helps your company. That's good. New ways to implement cycle counting. Okay, I love that. So Blake, you got something going on right now and get a raise. Yeah, absolutely. We'll do what you can for that. New to inventory management. So this is a good place to start. Be better at my job. Let's see here. New insight. Nuance in the inventory details. The details aren't accurate. Okay, that's good. We're gonna get into that a little bit. We may want to have a follow-up call. Who was that? Corey and Mike to get into that a little bit more detail. Drive productivity and schedule attainment. Absolutely. If it doesn't do that, then we have completely failed. Okay, that's good feedback. That's good. That's a good start. So let's talk about the inventory management just a little bit. And, you know, I'm calling it auditing a inventory record. And, you know, how you count really matters on this. And there are two ways that we do this that that most of you are going to be aware of. And the first one is what we're going to be talking about today, and that's going to be cycle counting. And again, it's not like one's bad and the other one is good, although I do believe that, but they're just different and they serve a different purpose. So for cycle counting, you're going to count some of your items every day. You're going to count everything annually. And when we look at inventory management, you're going to count the most important items more than the items that are not as important, you know, the A items. You also have a timely correction of errors, and you're not shutting anything down. Okay, so that's cycle counting, and we'll get into all of those details. Periodic count is different. You know, that's where you shut down the facility. You get everyone out there, you know, temporary executive management, everybody, and they'll go out and they'll do the count. So you do it annually or biannually, whatever. Disruptive, expensive, but it's necessary for financial reporting. Okay, and that's what I've experienced in my past when I've done a periodic inventory, is it was to verify that the general ledger was accurate. Okay. And we've got a few people with an accounting background on this webinar. So if I totally mess up, don't be shy, jump in and correct me. But that's generally what we'll see for periodic inventory. In a perfect world, what you would have would be a cycle count inventory, and you're counting and you're showing that you have good control of your inventory, and you really don't have to do a periodic count because you've demonstrated competence in inventory control. That's the perfect world, and that happens. The other case is that you may have to do a periodic inventory, that, you know, the annual or biannual inventory, but you're still doing cycle counts to minimize the adjustment that you're going to have to make. But they're serving a very, very different customer. Cycle counting is to preserve your operational effectiveness, and the periodic count mainly has a financial customer. And, you know, sometimes we do both. All right, let's talk about this process just a little bit. You know, this is going to start out pretty basic. It's a plan, do, check, act methodology. Okay, and you count your inventory, you find your errors, and then you correct your inventory. Now, okay, I got another two boxes, but I don't want to go there quite yet. Okay, if you do count, fix the error, and correct the inventory, that's just crazy to only do that. Okay, that's what you see often in a periodic inventory, and sure, it makes the numbers correct, but you're not even addressing the problem. Why was it off to begin with? Okay, why? I mean, why have this error? What happened there? So with cycle counting, we throw in a couple of boxes. We're going to determine the cause of the error, and we're going to eliminate or minimize that cause of the error. Okay, and those two boxes are what are critical about cycle counting. And I'm going to give you a spoiler alert right now. We're going to talk about how many items you need to count within your inventory. When you're doing that, make sure that you reserve enough time to actually investigate the reason for that error, and then put in some process or control that minimizes that or eliminates it from occurring again. So you really have to keep your head around those two final boxes, and then you repeat the cycle. Now, ultimately, what you're doing is you are looking for continuous improvement and improving the accuracy. And you keep running through that plan, do, check cycle until you have it at, I call it at a level of diminishing returns. So where it's at a level where you want it to be. Okay, there are a couple other less obvious advantages to cycle counting. And we don't talk about this much, but I really wish that we would. And the first is that you're counting your inventory and verifying its accuracy more often. Okay, more frequently. It's not just once or twice a year. So you have a timely correction of that error. So if something happened that made the inventory wrong, you're going to catch it pretty quick. So it's not going to be sitting there for long. You're going to identify it earlier, get it fixed, and then moved on. Okay, that's kind of obvious. The other thing, which is less obvious, is that there's less time between whatever event caused that inventory inaccuracy to where you found it. And then therefore, and because of that, you've got fewer transactions on that material, and it's a lot easier to find out what caused the error in the first place. You've had less receipts, less material issues, you've had less adjustments that you need to look at. So it's so much easier to spot what's going on. And the other thing is that you're developing a skill set to find and fix the errors. Now, most anybody can count and do that, but to actually figure out what's going on and fix that, that's a skill set that you're going to want. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds, and keep in mind this cycle counting template. This is one of those things. It's really an ABC analysis spreadsheet. It's one that I've got. If you're interested in doing this, or even just playing with your inventory using this template, let's set up a separate call, and I'll give you the tool. We'll plug in your data, and then we'll create an ABC analysis for everyone on this call. Okay, I mean, it's really simple process, but you need the tool that I've got to use that. So where do you start? Well, you determine where your inventory value and movement really is, and that's all this spreadsheet does. Is we're looking at the item description, the annual usage, and unit costs, and that gives me the annual usage in dollars. From there, what I'll do is I'll sort that column descending manner, and the item that I'm spending the most money on is at the very top, and conversely, the one I'm spending the least on is going to be at the bottom. From there, I will generate the cumulative percent, and I'll assign the ABC analysis, and that's over on your right based on that. Now, there are a couple of rules. We're going to go over the rules about how I determine whether something is an A, B, or C. But the one thing that I want you to consider is that even though I have the math that's going to tell you how you should do it, you have flexibility within this tool. And if you feel that an item based on annual usage is a C, but you want to manage it more closely, it's typically incorrect, or it has to be there, make it an A. Okay, you have the flexibility to do anything you want to with the sheet. I'm just telling you where to start and get you down that path. All right, so let's talk about how you would assign an ABC analysis. And because that's important, because it drives the count frequency. So looking at this, you have your A items, and this is based on the annual value of spend on this item. The reason I'm choosing annual value of spend over inventory value is I want to see what items are moving through your facility and have a lot of transactions against them. So that's the reason I chose that column. But your A items are going to be about 20% of your SKUs, but they're going to represent about 80% of your total inventory value. So you want to control the heck out of those. You want tight control. You want to count them often, and you really want to understand if it's not exactly, if the actual count's not actually is what is in the system. On your B items, those are about 30% of your SKUs. They're going to represent about 15% of the dollars. So you want moderate control. And the C items, it's only 5% of the value, but they're half your items, and you just want them to be there. Okay, you want pretty loose control, but what you need to do is establish rules for the count frequency for each your A, B, and C classification, and then you're going to create a count schedule. Is everybody with me so far? Are we doing okay? Thumbs up. Everybody happy? All right, I got one thumbs up. All right, so the cycle count schedule. Do not write this down. Okay, do not write what I put down on there, because you need to make it your own. But after you have determined your A, B, and C items, you need to decide how often you're going to count each category. Now, the reason I say do not write this down is this is just the guidance, okay? If you are not having a very significant inventory issue, if your inventory is generally accurate and it's not causing you problems, then why commit a lot of energy to this? Just put some controls in place. You may want to count your items less, your A items less often, just to verify them, but you may not need to have frequent check because you're getting no value in doing that. So make it your own. Count those as often as you feel appropriate. If you're in a highly volatile industry, or if you have a lot of error within your inventory, then you need to find out really quick that you do have a problem. So you would want to count it on the higher end. You would want to count it more frequently, but make the count schedule fit not only your objective, but also the environment that you're in. And this is, okay, I'm a supply chain guy, so it's weird for me saying this, but collaborate with finance or accounting on this, because they're a customer of this process, because the findings that you make within a cycle count will affect them as a journal entry, or just seeing that there's significant inventory movement. So partner with your finance or accounting group as you go there, and that will make the conversation much easier when adjustments do need to be made. Okay, so I'm going to go through a little math based on this slide right here. And let's say that I have got 200 items that I've identified as A. Well, I want to count them once a month because, of course, it's an A item and I want to manage that very closely. So if I have 200 items to count and I'm counting them monthly, then I have 2,400 counts per year. Well, that's going to be about half of the counts I make. Of course, there are 52 weeks in a year. So every week I have to count 46 items. Okay. You look at the B and C, and the same process occurs. The B's, I don't count those as much, but I have 400 of them. So I'm doing 1,600 count for that item, or 31 for a week. So every week, I'm going to be counting 46 A items, 31 B items, and 13 C items. Now, that's just the math, and that's what it says to do based on the assumptions that you've made. But here comes the question, can you do that? Based on your capabilities, can you count? And don't forget those last two boxes that we talked about earlier. You have to count those as well. So can you do that? Do the count and then investigate the reason for that error. I'm going to make a tangent. We got a note here. Hold on a second. You have your recommendations for inventory management of items that are constantly being produced and shipped. Feels like it's impossible to even nail down them to validate the system. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to play with that. Let's go offline on that, but I've got an idea because I've actually run in to that before. These principles that we are talking about, because they're really looking at batches of manufacturing or some type of, could be repetitive, but when you look at the actual flow inventory, that inventory is so transient, it's really hard to figure out what you do have. All right, I'm going to jot down the comment that we did get, because we're gonna have to play with that one a little bit. I actually don't have a really clear answer on that. This is Stump the Chump, and you won today, but we can figure it out. Okay, so let's look at the cycle counting process. And this is pretty typical, and I'm sure that all of you are familiar with this. You're going to start by performing a blind count based on the items that we just identified. You're going to review the exceptions and then report on the inventory accuracy. Well, this, again, we're really not fixing anything right now. We're just capturing that inventory accuracy. Well, really, even before you do this, you're going to have some tolerance guideline, and you'll have you'll compare what your actual count is to the variance that you've established. Now, again, I'm just throwing these percentages out. These are probably the standard, but based on your individual need for control on the inventory and your tolerance for error on control, you may want to change that percentage a little bit, and that's fine. You know, make it fit what you do. But you see, the A items have got like a 2% tolerance. So when you go in and you count that A item, if it's off just a little bit, that may or may not be an issue. You decide. But the point is that it's got to be perfect or very close to perfect. And as you get into the B and C items, the items that you're managing less closely, then you don't have to have as tight a tolerance. Now, this number is significant, okay? And it's important what you put there, because if when you do this count, if it falls within that 2% tolerance, really you just need to make an adjustment on your inventory, and you don't have to really investigate it, you know, unless you're able to. But it doesn't say, hey, I'm a problem, you know, work on me. It's not a red flag. If it's outside of that tolerance, then you need to investigate the reason for that error, and you need to you know, figure out exactly what's going on, the corrective action, implement that action, and just really see where it is. Now, keep in mind, continuous improvement to diminishing returns is the goal. And I put in to diminishing returns because at some point you are good enough. You're good enough to support the continuity of your manufacturing system, and any additional effort you put into your inventory, it just gives you diminishing returns. So I'm not saying you have to be perfect at your inventory, but you do need to understand where your process does fail and what you need to do to make sure that you have a reliable system. But perfection, you know, I don't have to have that. The other thing, and this is the good part about it, if you are cycle counting and you can demonstrate that you have good control over your inventory, then isn't that a good justification to have a quality conversation with finance or accounting, whoever, and say, I am demonstrating that I'm controlling the inventory, the values that I show within the system are accurate. Therefore, can I demonstrate that I don't have to do an annual or biannual inventory if we're doing that? It's a really good argument. It's a really good conversation. But, you know, it's really on you to make sure that you've got the control there first before you go in and have that conversation. Because, you know, finance, they're and accounting, they are accountable to a different customer, let's say. So we have to make sure that we have a process in place that meets their obligations and expectations. Okay, something to think about. All right, so why does inventory go wrong? I mean, why do you run into a problem? Well, usually, and what I found, it's a result of some transaction, okay? And it can be any number of these, but it's some movement. But it's really more than that. It can be a transaction of some similar item, or what the bill of material, possibly good input, Reed. Bill of material. If it's wrong, it's really going to mess up the inventory. But it can be any number of things, and that's why you want to count it somewhat frequently so that you don't have a whole lot of transactions to investigate. Now, the other thing about this is you want to find the theme. So generally occurring, what is happening within the transaction that's causing the error. I've seen cases where a supplier and my company had a disagreement on the unit of measure. We were calling it a different thing. So they were shipping one quantity under one like box unit of measure, and I would call that an each. But it would be always some increment of 12 or whatever that I was off. And it took some investigation to find out that we were using different units of measure. One thing that we'll do is when we pick an item, a similar looking item may be sitting right next to that. So we go and pick the wrong item. Well, when that happens, the item that you intended to pick, the inventory is too high, and the item that you incorrectly picked was one item too low. So when you look at those two together, you say, hey, we may have a picking problem here. And we've done things like put up pictures of each item to make it more clear, or move them away from each other so that that error is less likely to occur. So there are any number of things, but that's the corrective action that you need to implement once you identify that. Okay, so a little bit about reporting and the metrics. And this is important because without this, you can forget about it. I mean, you're going to have no improvements if you don't measure where you are and seeing whether you're improving or not. So, you know, I'm just absolutely terrible at the graphs, but these will work. So let's talk about some of the things that we would want to report on in a cycle counting program. Now, I'm sure you're going to have some that I'm sure you're all going to have a graph that's better than mine, but let's go with this. First thing I want to report on when I'm talking about cycle counting is the items counted. Okay, did I count what we agreed that I would count? Okay, did I do the counts? It doesn't say whether it's right or wrong. It's just, did I put the effort in and do this? And the funny thing about this one is looking at each month, you see an A and a B in the graph, but you don't see a C. You don't see my C items. Why would that be? Why would I not report on C's? Any ideas? All right, so we've got a quiet bunch. Okay, here's why I did not report on C's. It's because I was doing a biannual inventory on the C items. Therefore, I felt no need. You're only counting them once a year. Good. I jumped the gun on that. Exactly. That's exactly the reason. So why include that in your cycle counting? Now, granted, when you do have that count once a year, if you see a large error in that, you can still investigate it. You know, it's a process that needs improvement, but there's no point in doing the C's if you're already counting them once or twice a year anyway. It's perfect, Melanie. Thank you. The other reporting is absolute variance. And that is so important. You don't want to just report on your variance, because remember the example, if you go in and you pick the wrong item, one item's going to be too high on your inventory value. The other one's going to be too low. Well, those two are going to offset. The reporting is going to say you're great, but you're not. You're too high on one, too low on the other. So I want to see the absolute variance of the error within this. And I also want to see the goal. You know, what is my variance based on the goal? And you see we had 2% on the A, so I've got that listed. Again, I'll take a class on graphs. But anyway, it does tell the story, and it does give me an action. And when April comes around, I'm going to see I have a problem. And when June comes around and I've got a larger adjustment, I'm going to get really excited because I'm losing control of my inventory. And I have got to take an action, and I'm getting worse, basically. So that's the reason some of these graphs will tell a good story, and it will tell you whether you're getting better or not. But it is giving you information that you can act upon. Another metric that I'll use on that will be the error as a percentage. Now, this one's a little different because I'm reporting this at the SKU level, okay? And if I count 10 items and 8 of them are correct within the tolerance, then basically my error is going to be that 2 out of 10, basically. But I want to know in general, what is my level of control? Now, it doesn't matter how you measure it. And if you're currently measuring inventory, see if you can incorporate it within the reporting of your cycle count, reports. Do something that you're comfortable with and that you're used to, but make sure it gives you the information to tell you whether you are getting better or worse and what the effects are. Because remember, we talked plan, do, check, act. So if I implement a plan to prevent future errors from occurring, I need to see whether that control that I put in place is effective. And this reporting will tell you that. All right. The last thing is that the inventory review, that's going to occur. That's going to occur in a number of ways. I've seen that within a business review, in the supply side meeting of sales and operations planning, but it's going to be somewhere within the operations side of things. And within the inventory review, you're going to talk about where you are in your inventory accuracy, but it's really not a meeting. Basically, there needs to be actionable results if they merit that. If you're showing great control over inventory, then not much discussion. But if you're bad or getting worse, then there needs to be a quality conversation about what's going on and what you're going to do to reverse that trend, whatever it is. But it's a meeting that would come out. It's not a meeting. It's a discussion in which you're going to have action points, and you need to see the positive effect in the metrics that you're going to review. All right. So. There we go. All right, so let me check my last comment. I introduced the idea of absolute variance, both count and financial, and surprised that nobody had thought of it before. Yeah, it definitely paints a different picture. And yeah, for me, from an inventory guy, I would love to be able to report on average variance. That would show that I'm doing a fantastic job, but it gets real when you look at the absolute variance, and that has got to be there. It's got to be there because that tells you your overall effectiveness. Okay, so I have got nothing left for you. However, I do know that we went through the principles, but we're at a granular enough level where you see what the process is supposed to look like. If you want to start making it happen at your facility, I really ask you, don't try to figure out these processes, because I have made so many mistakes in implementing those. I want you to benefit from the mistakes that I have made. So have a follow-up call with me, and we'll play around with your data. We'll play around with your process, and I'll help you along as you do implement this plan. All right. Thank you all. And in wrapping up, I'm going to hand it over to Felicia since she got me started. Felicia?
Well, this is the time when we typically ask if there's anybody who has any questions. If you want to unmute your mic and speak up, we'll be happy to field those for you at this time. This is a very quiet group. They must be contemplating.
Either I did a fantastic job in covering everything and there's no possible stone unturned. I'll choose to believe that.
As awesome as you are, and I have no doubt that that is completely possible. I think this is great. While they're thinking about their questions, do you want to flip back to your contact page so that they can see the best way to reach out to you? That sounds great. Thank you. Misty, do you have any questions? Oh, it sounded like somebody might have been opening a mic.
Kevin, this is Dwayne.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, I've got a couple of things that were always useful for me in practice. In order to maintain inventory accuracy, there's some tricks that we always did. And one of them was we would, if we had an idle time, a little bit of idle time, we would go scroll our bins, and if there was an empty one, we would look in the system to make sure it was supposed to be empty. So that's a real quick check. And then, or you can walk down an aisle and make a list of all the ones that are empty, and then go back to your computer and verify that they're supposed to be empty. And then conversely, you can run a report of all the empty bins in the system and go walk by them and make sure they are empty. So that's an easy way to catch inventory discrepancies. And then another key thing was when after parts came from receiving to the warehouse for us, I worked in an electronics factory, there would be we double check to make sure that there was nothing left in that in-transit bin that didn't get placed in the in-transit location that didn't get placed in the bin every night. So we always double checked to make sure parts got moved to a bin and allocated. So anyway, I hope that's helpful.
No, it is. So let me take that a little further. And I'm glad you brought that up, because here I am. I showed a process to get everyone started on doing these counts. It gives you some methodology, but go with what Dwayne should do, whatever makes sense within your company on a good time to count. Another one is when you have a receipt, a material receipt. So when you go in and you stock that, why don't you do a count then and make sure that the system's right? That does two things. It helps you with your ABC counting, but also if you're doing a stock receipt, chances are that that material has got some, I mean, you're ordering it frequently and you have a number of transactions there anyway. So that's an item that you need to be counting a lot anyway. So go ahead and do it then as part of that stocking process. But really, really good point. And that just stresses the flexibility that you want to put in this system following some rigid rules. Thank you. Thank you much. Who else?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Melanie. It's a little bit.
Okay. Sorry, I don't have my phone on. I'm just using computer stuff. I count on a regular basis because I'm in manufacturing and I have to because it's moving constantly, but I don't have any records of what I do. And that's what I really need is to be able to record and say, hey, this is getting worse, this is getting better and stuff like that. So I would like to talk about that.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I wish I had about 10 hours to talk about this. But with Melanie, with what you brought up, that's something that we all have to work through when we're doing this. Now, here's an example. In the ERP systems I work with, they do a really good job at generating count sheets and allowing me to perform the cycle count process. However, they do a very poor job at reporting how I've done that over time. And usually that's another bolt-on module or anything. So what I've had to do in the past was go to Excel to somehow capture that information and get it to tell a story about how I've done in the past. Just because looking at 1 month of data doesn't help you one bit. You know, it doesn't tell you whether you're getting better or worse or anything like that. What we could do is you could reach out to me and we could play around with your reporting and see if we could get it to get a little closer to manipulating that. But usually coming out of the system is going to be the way you have to do that and go into something like Excel that gives you that flexibility. Good point.
Hey, Kevin, we've got a question from the chat is, what are some common technologies used to help manage inventory?
Technology. You know, whenever you go with, well, some of this is not going to be technology, but it's things, it's stuff that helps you. One of which is any scanning, you know, any type of automatic material issue or receipt by using the scanning technologies. that basically human proof anything, any of those transactions. That's a really good one. In the absence of that, Kanban systems are really good at managing this because they automatically, they will immediately tell you when an inventory issue takes place. Not so much issue, but when you trigger a replenishment point, you're going to know what your inventory is because of the Kanban amount. So Kanban is really good at making sure that you do not get into trouble. That's another one. Aside from that, from the technology, I'm kind of old school. So I go to the basic principles, and hopefully augment the ERP system, but I'll use the general principles and good management and good investigation to figure out where within the current process is failing that's creating the inventory. So technology will only take you so far. You got to have a good process that is repeatable, that keeps you from getting in trouble. I wish I could give you a better answer, but that's the best I got right now. RFID is, that's another good one. I think, Gordon should be doing this. He's smarter than I am, but that's another good technology. Thank you.
Hey, are there any more questions out there? Okay, well, that took us about 45 minutes. And you guys see Kevin Cooper's email and phone number on your screen. It is also posted in the chat from Misty. Thank you, Misty. If there is anything that we can do to help you through this process, we are here to help. So, Kevin, if you want to wrap it up, we are good to go.
I've wrapped it up. You done it. Thank you all for joining us. This is fun. And again, you know where to find me, and I'm happy to help any way I can on this. But thank you again.